First, I have to find a really nice piece of wood. It's not like I have a pile of exotic wood just lying around my living room. Oh, never mind. I decided to make it out of this nice piece of olive wood. It has similar density to rosewood and can be a challenge to work with. And if you're wondering where I keep getting all this rare and exotic wood from, keep wondering. I drew a really rough shape for the front and back of the psaltery, and I had a piece of maple I was going to use for the frame and sides of the instruments. Since cutting a big plank of maple into really specific sizes might have been a tad ambitious with a handsaw, I asked for some assistance to shape the wood. My uncle is a professional craftsman, and I borrowed some of his very big power tools to cut the maple into small planks and to shape and cut the olive wood in half. And by borrowing his tools, I mean he did it for me while I frolicked in the garden. Turns out using loads of really good equipment can make your life easier. Everything is shaped and ready to go. I needed to finish off cutting the olive wood into two pieces, for the front and the back, as the circular saw only cut about halfway through. I did this with a standard saw. After trying a few different ways, I think I found the best way of doing it, eventually. This took a while. I was also relying on the English weather, which turned out pretty much how you'd expect it to. After sawing for a moderate amount of time, and in various locations depending on how the sky was feeling that day, we had our front and back. A quick shape up and it was time to start making the frame of the instrument. I did this by cutting the maple parts at angles into a this shape. To secure this, I also used wooden dowels made of birch wood to help connect the pieces. A psaltery is a box Zither type instrument. Its resonant box is usually trapezoidal. I really should learn how to say that word. There's been various versions of this type of stringed instruments with multiple variations used widely around Europe from around the 12th century. There are hundreds of regional versions around the world, and bowed versions also exist. With the frame loosely connected, It was time to glue the pieces together and attach the back of the psaltery. With everything ready and glued, I clamped the frame to the back of the instrument. After a quick cleanup and sanding everything inside, it was now time to attach the front of the instrument. It takes absolute concentration and focus to place the front of the instrument nailed it. It was now time to clamp everything together and leave it for a day. After that, it was time to use the biggest secret that any woodworker uses. Look, there are two types of people in this world. Those that use wood filler, and liars. It was now time to cut and shape the body and clean everything up. After a moderate amount of time of sanding, the body was looking pretty nice. It was now time to drill a sound hole for the instrument. I attached a large drill and very, very carefully drilled 3 holes in the front that I was going to cut out with a saw and file down. It's all about being careful and light with these types of things. After a quick final sanding, the body of the instrument was ready. Now, let's all just take a short moment to appreciate how pretty this olive wood is. And with that, it's time to add some Danish oil as a finisher. I use organic Danish oil, which is linseed oil but doesn't have any of the nasty additives of some of the cheaper linseed oils. The downside of it takes a lot longer to dry than other linseed oils. But every time I use wood finishing oil, I manage to douse every part of myself and about 90% of my house in it as well. So I'd rather do that with natural and organic oil than dangerous and toxic ones. With that done, it was now time to drill the holes to attach the pegs to that will hold the strings. And here's everything done in tile as expected, don't worry about that missing one. In case you are wondering why I filled that hole and drilled the peg in a different location, here's a visual demonstration of why. How am I going to get that back out? I then drilled really small holes to hold the ball end strings I'll be using. A psaltery uses steel strings. I then created a bridge for the strings to sit on. This was a piece of ash that I then filed and made a small ridge for the metal rod to sit in and support the strings. I used brass for the metal rod, though it is also common to use aluminium. Now my metal rod was slightly too big for the bridge, so I've never really cut metal and I'm not really sure any of my woodworking tools will even cut brass, but I decided that subtlety and restraint was how I should approach this. Everything was ready to go, and it was time to start stringing the instrument. I used guitar strings at various tension gauges for this. Originally I was going to use lyre strings, but they weren't long enough, and I found it really hard to find plucked psaltery strings or Kantele strings in Britain. It took a little while to get used to stringing the instrument, but once I got it going, it wasn't too hard. After everything was strung, it was time to tune up. I think I might have had too thicker strings for the highest strings, so I decided to lower the tuning to better suit this, and left out a few of the top strings until I find lower gauge strings. With everything eventually tuned up, the psaltery was complete.